Birds of Prey non-spoiler review. Not a single spoiler in the next few minutes. I will do a spoiler review in a week. I will probably give it until next Wednesday, do a full spoiler review. But first, no spoilers, I promise you. Birds of Prey is a live-action cartoon come to life, which is so fitting for Harley and Quinzel. That character was born in the cartoon, and she lives on in a cartoon live-action flavor. And man, oh man, this movie is like... It's like reading a really cool arc of 12 issues, and there's a couple issues that are different creators, and I liked that. Like, that could easily have gone awry. That could easily be a bad thing. That could easily have not been what you'd want out of a movie, but in this case, it really lands. There are moments of drama. There are moments of procedural. There are moments of tension. There are moments of pure mania. There are moments that feel like a cartoon. There are moments that feel like a very serious drama, and I think it really, really balances like 8 tones well. I think it really makes sure you know what you're watching, but it does a lot of juggling. My only critique of that is it's really hard to, at times, invest in the character you just met, but then by the second scene, you're fully there. It's a movie with a lot of characters, but they all get enough time to shine that I'm really excited for them to get more time. It's hard to land a 5 new character movie, and I think this really does. We've only met Harley in Suicide Squad in a very specific way, so they kind of had to reinvent and reintroduce Harley, and then also introduce the 4 other birds, and I really think they do in a miraculous way. So I've seen a lot of criticism about the amount of time, your Black Canary and Huntress get, but I really think what they were able to accomplish is really impressive. Hey, my super chat works. Thank you, Sean Cal 26. That's awesome. Sorry to interrupt the review. This is the first time I've seen that logo. That makes me real happy. Okay, so I really think that what the movie does is it balances a structure shift in DC. Now, DC is going to be going from the shared universe to my theory is that they're going to be leaning into Elseworlds. They're going to be leaning into all of the broad swath of what comic books are. Comic books are a shared universe, but every single issue doesn't relate to another. Canon is a concept because if everything was canon, you wouldn't have to call it canon. So I think what DC is going to be doing is playing around with this very diverse array of characters that doesn't need to all know the one next door. I personally love that they went from Joker, which is the most upsetting, violent, somber, real, grounded, gritty superhero film that DC has done to date, and then juxtapose that with one of the wackiest, crazy superhero movies I've ever seen, and that shows the strength of the DC Films brand. I think it's a really strong move to come between those two, especially since those characters relate. Joker and Harley are very simpatico. They're yin to each other's yang in so many ways in the comics, and they're together, and this Joker we just had with Joaquin Phoenix has nothing to do with their Harley Quinn, and audiences understand that. And that's a beautiful thing. We live in a time where the everyday audience gets that these are different Jokers that they're talking about in the film. Also, the fact that Harley Quinn is able to evolve from her Suicide Squad persona in a really natural way allows us to grow out this franchise. So I really liked that they followed up Joker with another strong film, and it doesn't take away from the other. Now, this also, I have to talk about Ewan McGregor and Chris Messina. I think that I gotta say it, and this is gonna sound hyperbolic, I think Ewan McGregor is one of the best superhero villains I've ever seen, and probably my favorite DC villain in this modern era of DC film. If you consider Joker a villain, that's a hard thing to land because he's the protagonist-antagonist, so I'm kind of taking out that Elseworld, and I'm just gonna live over here with Chris Messina and Ewan McGregor. The duo of them, and I feel like Chris Messina needs a lot of love that he's not getting. Chris Messina plays Victor Zsasz in such a maniacal glee that isn't over the top in a very specific way. They have these levels where Ewan McGregor's at an 11 and he's at a 9, but because the 11 of Ewan makes the 9 seem almost chill, but then you isolate Chris Messina's Victor Zsasz and it's a totally that's a 9. That's mania and awesomeness. And he also plays him with this childlike glee over horrible things. I've never seen Victor Zsasz portrayed quite this way. The imagery, you guys have seen it, he doesn't have the more systematic, symmetrical scars. He has very chaotic, flowing scars, which is more realistic to what the character's like in the comic. It's just comic books, it's a great example of adaptation. Comic books, it makes sense to have the beautiful patchwork organized scars, but in real life that'd be very difficult to do and make look right or possible. So I really think the way they landed Zsasz is a great adaptation without being a direct copy of the character. They evolved him into the medium of film, and I think this movie overall does that really well. A lot of the characters are very different than their Birds of Prey comic book counterpart, but I think that's to the strength of the film. I also think that's to the strength of what DC Films is doing. I think keeping the comics benefits both the films and the comics. Now, I gotta talk about Ewan McGregor, like I said. Ewan McGregor delivered lines in this that on paper must have read completely different. I can't imagine watching this movie and reading the script side by side, because there were so many times he'd say a line and I'd be like, what a brilliant, completely different line reading. What an insane, magical, wonderful, inspired take on that line. I'm never going to read Black Mask the same again. I'm never going to think about the character the same way again. I'm never going to see Ewan McGregor the same way again. He's honestly a Train Spotting meets Moulin Rouge, bombastic, completely in love with posh. Like, the character is just perfect. And the interaction with other characters really just develop the character more and more. There's a scene with Margot Robbie where it develops both their characters and like a tete-a-tete, where both characters level up in like 5 minutes and you understand both of their backstories better. And once again, this is a freaking live-action cartoon, and some of these scenes wouldn't work in any other film, in any Marvel, DC, Image, any other comic book film. It's unique to this film, and as the movie develops, it leans more and more into that brand. There are action set pieces, which, by the way, the action in this film is gory and glorious. It's glorious. It is so palpably violent, but so cartoonish that you're cheering for broken bones. You're experiencing all of the glory of John Wick's finesse, but in a comic book cartoon medium. So they can land things that even wouldn't work in John Wick, and there's action set pieces that literally couldn't exist before Suicide Squad. So I gotta thank Suicide Squad. Also, to me, this felt like the tone they were working towards with Suicide Squad, and they landed it here. A lot of the things I liked about Suicide Squad, this did, and did it more consistently. And there's tons of little Easter eggs that are really fun. Once again, no spoilers. I'll do spoilers in a week. But a lot of the things they did were really inspired by the world they've already built, and I really think they landed that incredibly well, and I'm so proud. I mentioned the comics. It is very different from the comic books, but you'll notice a lot of like the Palmiotti run. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I love the guy. I just don't know how to pronounce his name. I've never heard it in real life. And I forget Amanda's last name. Amanda and Palmiotti, their run on Harley Quinn is very much at play here. So that Harley Quinn is the piece of the Birds of Prey puzzle, and the Birds of Prey, I believe, as the franchise evolves, will get to be more and more the Birds of Prey we know from the comics, but I really think it works as a film choice, so I have no regrets there. Individually, I gotta say, Margot Robbie delivers some of the best work of her career, and that's saying a lot, because this is not a actor showpiece. You know, comic book films, when you do them right, can be actor showpieces, but you wouldn't look at a Birds of Prey concept, trailer, any of that and be like, I bet there's a great award ceremony coming from this. But Margot, if you look at her individual pieces of work in this, she delivers some truly brutally painful moments while having a tongue-in-cheek awareness and glee, while also being very aware she's in a comic film, but not letting that shape the character away from being realistic, but in the surrealistic way that she has to be. It's hard to even describe this performance. She knows she's living in a cartoon world, but plays it with such groundedness, you're in. It's like watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit with Daniel Day-Lewis in it. Like, you know there's cartoons right over there, but the groundedness is so breathtaking you actually feel for her, and that's consistent. There's also, this isn't a spoiler, but she's drunk at one point, and the drunk acting is so hard to do in a straight film, like in a straight composed, like, straight man film, and she does that in a film that has wacky hijinks, and it's still over the top, but still real. It's some of the best drunk acting I've ever seen. Margot Robbie is... Since Wolf of Wall Street, I've been blown away by her, and this tour de force performance in a comic book film is next level, and I couldn't be happier with the cinematic Harley Quinn. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, a powerhouse actress in everything she does, not necessarily known for her comedy, but now she will be. She is so funny in this. She is so specific in this. I can't wait to do the spoiler review to talk about her character. There's a lot going on with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and her character has so much fun. I really loved seeing her get to play and laugh and be. It's a really fun time. Journey Smollett Bell is going to be a household name after this film. After this film, Black Canary will be everywhere. The character, the actress, the concept, she's just a beast. Like her action choreography, and so much of it is her. They keep still on the frames. There's not a lot of the Jason Bourne style directing. There's a lot of like wides where you can tell it's her actually kicking ass. And I was so impressed with her choreography, with her fight training, and her acting. She's brilliant. I don't know her work very well, and I was blown away by her in this. So impressed. And once again, Ewan McGregor, Chris Messina, stealing every scene they're in. I'm gonna do it like a 10-minute dissertation on their relationship on the spoiler review, because it was just delightful, and I can't wait to talk about some of the lines of dialogue that were somehow delivered in these ways. Once again, no spoilers, but man, we're going to dive in a week into the spoilers, because this movie made me so happy, and there's so much I want to talk about. So I would absolutely recommend Birds of Prey to everyone that loves comic book films. If you're a DC fan, if you're a Marvel fan, if you're a movie fan, this movie has lots of stuff for you. Go in knowing it's a cartoon. Go in knowing it's also still a drama. Go in knowing it is a restart and also doesn't ignore the past. Go in knowing it is a franchise in the making. Go in knowing that there are some performances here I didn't think would be this magical. I can't recommend it enough. It is probably like that B+, A- mark, somewhere in there for me, on the scale of, however you rate films. I rate them by letter grades. I didn't get a junior high school mentality for rating. So B+, A- for me, and I hope it makes a lot of money. It deserves to, and I cannot wait to talk about it in more detail in spoilers. So that is my Birds of Prey non-spoiler review. I really enjoyed it. Go check it out. See it big, see it loud, all those other cliches that are actually true. Okay, let me see what is going on. I'm quickly